And now I'd like to open the meeting to the sharing of testimonies of healing through Christian Science. And first on the list is Jim from Arizona. Go ahead.
Good evening. Our Love is the Liberator magazine is an important part of my daily life. I actually subscribe to 2 copies, so I am always have an extra copy issue available so that I can give it to somebody where I feel it'll be a benefit. My first copy of the current issue arrived Saturday, and a number of the articles were read immediately. By Monday afternoon, I'd completed all the articles. This issue is an outstanding one. I've already started a second reading. I was most interested in the article concerning our dailies, and although I go into more detail each day as I review our dailies, it never occurred to me to put it into print. Thank you. On our front cover, on the front cover, I mark the articles that I wish to review, and already, most of them are already marked. I am most grateful for this publication. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeremy.
Tonight I am so grateful for all this church offers. I've been getting great blessings from all the audio readings that have been made available lately. The combination of listening and reading the text at the same time always gives me new insight that I didn't get by reading alone. Just this morning, the chapter Idealism and Realism from Addresses by Martha Wilcox, read by Carol, really caught my attention. In it, Mrs. Wilcox wrote, quote, "Are we giving proof or evidence to the world that our bodies, our environments, all circumstances and events connected with our lives are divine facts at hand? It is our duty to present the concrete proof or evidence to the world in order that the world may understand the spiritual facts of life. We must give the so-called material evidence to the world, since it is only the material evidence that mortal mind can understand," unquote. This, along with the roundtable session from this past Sunday, is really serving to wake me up to what I need to do to prove my gratitude to God for all He has given me. I had a lot of wrong thinking when I showed up here, and I'm very thankful for how each day and every week, more and more of my thinking is getting turned around by these lessons and daily practitioner support. So to the practitioners, the readers, the lesson writers, and all who contribute in any way, thank you so much. What a blessing this church is, and I'm so grateful for that God brought me here. Thank you.
Thank you. Luann from New York, go ahead.
Thank you. I remember when I first started in Christian Science, I was suffering from a severe back injury that I sustained 8 years earlier on my job. Pain was so bad that I could not even get out of bed without help or suffering extensive pain. Years of following medical protocol and being told that I could not receive all the surgeries I needed to repair it took its toll on me. I became very negative and bitter about it. I could not understand why God was making me suffer so much. The more I thought about the lack of care, the more distraught I became. At that point, I had been working with my practitioner, who began clearing the way with love, opening my thought to truth, reestablishing my worth as a child of God, rebuking the many errors that had me strongly bound. She very declaratively stated, "God is your mind." It was a shock to me, but that was a wake-up call I needed to begin to understand God correctly. Over the next couple of years, as I persistently studied, participated in the Bible studies and roundtable discussions, continued getting support from my practitioner, I grew less and less focused on getting medical help and more focused on my purpose for being and working for God. I stopped taking medication for pain when I learned through the study and practice of Christian Science to trust and love God more, Eventually, I stopped going to physical therapy because it seemed pointless to keep bringing my thoughts back to my body when I had worked so hard to spiritualize my thoughts. The last time I saw my doctor, she said, after running me through the usual tests of mobility and strength, I don't see any reason for you to come back for any further appointments. I could see the amazement on her face, and I told her about the spiritual work I had been doing and the truths I had learned from my practitioner. She said she never saw anyone recover from such an injury without medical treatment and wished all her patients could do the same. I am so grateful to God for His goodness and healing power. I'm thankful that this healing came about precept upon precept, as Mrs. Eddy says. I have been so blessed to be learning about this wonderful God we all have. I am truly grateful for my practitioner and all the healings that have come about since seeking her help in Christian Science, for teaching me to handle the error in my thinking and rise in the strength of God. My life has truly been transformed. I cannot praise God enough, but to live in obedience to Him. Thank you.
Thank you. Linda from Pennsylvania, go ahead.
Good evening. Thank you for the beautiful readings and the service. Many testimonies in the past have been shared of those who have been healed and have had deep rewarding experiences when they have actually visited the Plainfield in person. I want to express tonight how I was blessed during a trip to Plainfield. While visiting, I became aware of a habit of mine of not giving my full attention to the person who's speaking. Instead, I find myself distracted or thinking of my next response. This was not loving to the speaker, and also doing this was putting me in a position for missing what was being said. I realized that this was not going to help me hear God either. This put a desire in my heart to be more mindful. Now I am even more aware of where my thoughts are drifting, no matter what I am doing. It is teaching me to be fully present to the task at the moment. Part of this habit of trying to multitask was also from a sense of needing to rush from activity to activity. After the trip, when I got home, I found an article by Florence Roberts on our website called Don't Rush, Trust. She wrote about how she learned to turn her days over to God and trust that He does govern. The statement, trust, don't rush, has been a helpful reminder as I am practicing to put my times in His hands. I also found a Bible quote from Psalm 57, quote, "My heart is fixed, O God, my heart is fixed," unquote. While I was at Plainfield, nothing was said to me, but I know it was being in the atmosphere around their work that they were doing. As Mrs. Eddy defines in church, part of a quote, rousing a dormant understanding from material belief to the apprehension of spiritual ideas, unquote. With this science of Christ, I am learning I do not have to live with character traits or permanent personality flaws. I know that that day that I was at Plainfield, I was being seen as God's daughter, made by Him, and this uplifted my thought to new ideals. I'm also deeply grateful for the practitioner support I am receiving here that had prepared my heart and opened my thought to this blessing. Thank you and good night.
Thank you. Luba from Ohio. Go ahead.
When I first began working with my Plainfield practitioner, I had no expectations. Since then, the changes that have occurred in my thinking have changed my life and how I view the world and my fellow man. I'm so very grateful to my practitioner for this, her dedication and her patience. The roundtable and Bible studies have taught me so very, very much, and I'm so grateful for all of this and I thank you so very much. Good evening.
Thank you. Chardell from Pennsylvania, go ahead.
Good evening. Tonight, I would like to express my gratitude for all the literature made available here at Plainfield Christian Science Church, Independent. I was given a pamphlet that explains the erroneous beliefs of reversal, relapse, and rebound pharma treatment. I had a wart on my thumb that went away years ago to reappear last year. And this year, as I worked on other matters, this wart disappeared. But I knew that I had to stand my spiritual ground. A quote from the booklet says, quote, "There is no reversal to unfoldment. There is no power that can reverse an unfoldment," end quote. And from Isaiah 55:11, mentioned in the booklet, quote, "So shall my word be that goeth forth out of my mouth. It shall not return unto me void, but it shall accomplish that which I please, and it shall prosper in the thing whereto I sent it," end quote. Since coming to Plainfield, I realize the importance of the prayer of no reversal to God's work. Thank you for this beautiful service tonight, music, the testimonies, and everyone involved in making these church services possible. Good evening.
Thank you. Lil.
I am so grateful for God's loving care. I went out recently to purchase an item for church. Turning off the highway into the store's parking lot, I misjudged the turn and a rear tire was damaged, hitting the curb. It started to deflate, so I tried to get to my car dealer a short distance down the highway, but could tell it was going flat, so pulled off. I called my road service for assistance and knew my practitioner was praying. Because I did have a spare tire, a tow truck wasn't needed and was told assistance would be coming in 55 minutes. A loving surprise came from the store owner where I was parked. He came out and gave me a bottle of water after I had mentioned I'd been parked in front of the store a short while. I was so surprised and grateful when the assistance arrived in 10 minutes, as he was in the area. The tire was quickly changed, and I was on my way to the dealer where I bought a new tire, had the wheels balanced, and was on my way in an hour and able to purchase the item I went out for. What a perfect working out, thanks to God's ever-presence, love, and practitioner prayers. And thank you for those wonderful readings.
Thank you. Fairley from Maryland, go ahead.
Tonight, I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude for the glorious company of members Plainfield Church Independent has gathered to our church from all over the United States and the world. It's so wonderful to interact with them at the Bible studies and roundtables, to hear their testimonies, read their statements on the bulletin board and the forum, and in our magazine, Love is a Liberator, and our newsletter. It's very reassuring in this world to have such involvement with so many people who are truly spiritually minded. Many thanks to all those at Plainfield and all they offer and the website that brought me here. And thank you for this beautiful service.
Thank you. Craig.
Thank you for those really good readings. Thank you, Jacob. It has been tremendous to me to feel like that I'm a really good person because that's what God makes. And it means a lot to me because in whatever I would be doing in the past, it seemed like I would get anxious. But when God's working, you don't need to do that. I found something in Watch This Person Arguments by Mary Baker. It had been helping me for some time. And I've gotten closer as I prayed and prayed. It's a prayer. And every day it goes, I pray to know and obey God's law, to be filled with all the fullness of Spirit, to have only the consciousness of God good. It goes on to the point that says there is no insufficiency of any kind in truth and infinite love. Good is ever present and the only reality of existence. Evil is obsolete. And there's no error of any nature or type that can smother, choke, or strangle truth for its manifestation. And that sweet prayer has done so much for me, because it told me off the bat, there's no insufficiency. You can do whatever God has for you to do. And there's nothing that can fool you, to give you too much, to choke you, to baby you, to smother you, to just viciously strangle you. And I've been feeling more alert to anything, or to thinking less of myself because of this. I thank God for the continual good supportive readings that we're given in the lesson that have really helped me to at least stay up and expect the good and let God work, instead of saying, oh, poor me, and thinking that something terrible is going to happen. And it hasn't happened. I thank God people have been happy with my work, and it means so much to me and my family, and encouraging that I don't need to look downward, but look upward, expect things to work out. This is a great place where you can be what God made. Thank God for Mary Baker 80, our church.
Thank you. This is Bruce. I'm very grateful for a blessing that I had this week. I find myself thanking God for it. But there's been a lesson that's come with this blessing, and that is a continuation to learn more and more that God governs my time, my day, my events, for me and for everyone else, and that I shouldn't be anxious about what's going to happen or when, but rather to trust God more and allow Him to open the way, in His good time, which is always far better than I could plan for myself. There's this company that I do business with, and I was expecting to have some business with them earlier this year, because typically I would. And I was a little concerned about what was going on over there. I kept calling and never getting anybody to answer my phone calls. And I realized that at that time when I was making the call, my concern was more with myself, my own convenience or my own desires. And I forced me to pray each time that I even got the inclination to do this, to just trust God. God has the right thing for me and for them, and it all happens at the right time. If I would just let Him take care of it. And I went along that way for a number of months and just being very happy about it, and found myself thanking God that He was governing everything. Well, just this week I got a phone call from them. They called me and says, okay, we need for you to come in and do some work now. And it proved to be a very happy, joyous time. And they're very grateful for the services that I have to offer, which is a wonderful blessing in itself. But also I could see that God was the one who pointed out the right time and the right way to do this. And the lesson for me is to trust Him more. thankfully trust Him more, joyously trust Him more. Florence or Day, go ahead.
Thank you. During a recent roundtable discussion, it was mentioned that prayer in Christian Science is about affirmation of God's allness and power. And I'm so thankful to be learning what this meaningful method of prayer means in my daily life. Recently, I had been becoming very anxious about when and how a specific experience would take place. I was overcome by various suggestions and opinions regarding the matter, and I found myself questioning the pace of progress, although I knew this wasn't right. I continued to simply acknowledge God's presence and power until I began to think, thank you, Father, for your perfect timing. This is exactly what I needed to affirm the truth that the unfoldment of all right events happens in God's perfect time. So there's no need for me to try to rush or to be anxious because God, who knows best and is in control, is governing. This is something I must continue to work with always, and I'm so grateful for this and for all that I'm learning here. Thank you so much for tonight's readings and for all the testimonies.
Thank you. Jose, come over here and stand in front of the microphone. Excellent, right there. That way we're going to get you.
Thank you. I just want to express my gratitude to God and to Bruce for today, because I called him to get a phone number for Greg, and I felt like special to be invited to be here, and I do feel wonderful, and just want to express my gratitude for all the love that is in this place, that has been since day one, even though some people tell me not to come here. But I do feel the love, and it comes from God. And I'm very, very happy to be here. Thank you.
And I can't tell you how happy it made us to see your smiling face walk through the front door tonight. Glad you're with us, Jose. Sharon.
Last week I had a day off from work and I had a lot of errands to do. And probably after a couple hours I was able to call my practitioner and get some help. And when I hung up the phone, I just felt so uplifted and so loved. And to say the least, the rest of the day even went better. But I had, after a short time, I had one more errand to do, and it was a distance, and I was very hungry. And I thought, well, I should get some lunch. And the thought came, well, I don't want to eat by myself. And then I remember being taught that God is our best and ever friend, always with us. And I thought, I am never alone. And I went to a nice little cafe and I had a little sandwich, and I was able to just sit there and just reconnect with God and speak to Him. And I was so uplifted. And I just want to say how grateful I am for all that I'm learning in this church. And when it's needed, the right answer always comes. And I was able to do my final errand and bless someone and just have a joyous afternoon. I am so grateful, and I want to thank Practitioner for all the love and uplift every time I speak with her. It is just a privilege to be a member of this church, and I'm so grateful for all our members all over the world. Thank you.
Thank you. Mary.
I have a few notes to read tonight. First from Kansas, a very long-time member. Hello, friends. Thank you to all of you who do so much to advance Christian Science. Thanks for all the time and energy you give to this. It certainly is appreciated, and I've enclosed my donation, as well as an order. And then California. Dear friends, always so good to hear familiar voices of members in and out of Plainfield during the Sunday service and roundtable, the Wednesday meeting, Unity Watches, and soon to be again Bible studies. I am so grateful for all those activities of the Plainfield Church, as well as the wonderful website and publications. There's so much good going out to all mankind. I'm so glad to be a member of the Plainfield Church. What a wonderful difference this church has made in my life. And then a little note from someone new. I'm not sure where she's from. Hello, new friends. So thankful I found your website and your true, underlined, Christian Science Church. Very sincerely. And then a couple things on our church website bulletin board. Pennsylvania. Thanks to all for the terrific roundtable discussion this morning. There is nothing but God, and also the comforting assurance that if at some point we need to turn to materia medica, we are not condemned, but supported and loved. Many years ago, I was in a hospital for a few days where I received wonderful care, and when I left, I gave the physician a copy of Science and Health with Key to the Scriptures by Mary Baker Eddy. And then also Pennsylvania. Thanks so much for archiving Plainfield's excellent church services, Bible studies, and roundtables, providing a second chance if we miss the live broadcast, as well as to repeat listening. Sunday's roundtable focusing on the needs of youth was superb. Kudos to all involved. Thank you. I'd like to thank Jacob from Costa Rica tonight for his readings. They were beautiful selections from both the Bible and also Mrs. Eddy's chapter, No and Yes. I thought it was so helpful and also interesting where she says, ever-present love must seem ever absent to ever-present selfishness or material sense. I can say in my own experience, it was the combination of fear and also selfishness that kept me from feeling ever-present love. And I'm grateful to a practitioner who rebuked this selfishness, this inward thinking that I was having that no one else had ever addressed before. And at first, perhaps I didn't like it. My pride was hurt, but I knew I needed it, and it helped me to grow, as it always does when it's taken in the spirit in which it's given. So I often think now, Mrs. Eddy has a lesson twice a year on everlasting punishment. Well, my definition of everlasting punishment would be ever-present selfishness. Selfishness is not our friend, and I'm so grateful to our church in which we have so many avenues in which we can forget self in working for God, because that's truly our salvation. Also, it was read tonight that truth is as the small, still voice which comes to our recognition only as our natures are changed by its silent influence. I thought that was just beautiful of Mrs. Eddy, that here truth is that still small voice, and it only comes, we can only recognize it as our natures are changed by its silent influence. So, for those of us who, as the theme of tonight's readings was the way of holiness, I guess we would all desire that holiness. And how do we get it? Well, one is what I mentioned, to get rid of a selfish nature, but another is to let ourselves be changed by this silent influence within us, God speaking to us quietly within us. And the more we do that, the more we are enabled to hear His voice, and the more we do change, and our spiritual sense of all things increases. I'm very, very grateful to be here tonight. Such beautiful music, the prelude, I love that. How great thou art. And that is our God. How great thou art. So grateful to be with you all tonight.
Thank you.